Hello and welcome to Nikolai's Genetics Lessons, and today's problem is: in the below family, a child has been born with acheropodia, congenital absence of hands and feet. Assuming that this is a genetic problem, what is the most likely inheritance pattern, and how likely is that the next child of 3, 3 and 3, 4 will be affected? So, generation 3, 3 and 4, two people here who are parents of this affected child. And here is 5 answers to choose from. As usual, I recommend you to pause video here, try to solve this problem on your own first, and when you would be ready you can run video again and you can compare your answer with my answer and explanation. So let me start with answer E, mitochondrial 1 and 2. You probably would be able to answer this question right away. What mitochondria do in our organism? We have in every single cell hundreds and thousands of mitochondria, and mitochondria makes energy for all the biological activity in every single cell. So usually when someone has problems with mitochondria, that person has problems with nerve system and also with muscles. So muscles need a lot of energy, just like our brains. Our brains consume about 40% of the oxygen when we are resting, and our muscles, of course, also another large consumer of the energy. So we would know right away that a person has mitochondrial problems if, for example, this problem would be connected to the nervous system, or a person would have some problems with muscles. And from our problem we see that this is completely different story here. But still, imagine that this is egg cell and here is a sperm. As you see, the sizes is like hundreds times egg cell bigger than a sperm, and this is because egg cell have to have a lot of different enzymes and also energy for development of the new organism. And basically what sperm do is just bring genetic material from the father. So as you see here, there is not much mitochondria. It's only present in the tail here, and when sperm penetrates egg cell, this tail would be lost. So basically all the progeny, so imagine that this is fertilized now egg cell, there is genetic material of the mother plus genetic material of the father, and as you see, hundreds of mitochondria that is inherited from mother side and not from the father side. So all the progeny of two parents would inherit, of course, mitochondria only from the mother side. For example, if this female would have mitochondrial problems, 100% of her progeny also would be affected. But next generation picture would be different. Once again, this male would produce sperm that almost doesn't have mitochondria, or has it only in a tail, as you remember, which would be lost when sperm penetrates egg cell. So in this family where male have been affected, all the children have to be phenotypically and genotypically normal. But in this family, 100% of the progeny also would be affected because their mother is affected. And these two females doesn't have a progeny, probably not married yet, but we also can predict that 100% of their progeny also would be affected with this genetic disorder if it is mitochondrial. So as you see, this is not mitochondrial genetic disorder, otherwise this female have to be affected. So we can cross answer E. This is not mitochondrial genetic disorder. Let's return to the answer A. X-linked recessive, 1 in 2 for son and 1 in 4 for daughter, that we can expect to be affected. So imagine now that genotype of this female, if it is X-linked recessive, it have to be 2 defective X chromosomes. What does it mean? It means that 1 defective chromosome she got from the mother side. So mother, we see, is phenotypically normal, so she has to have 2 chromosomes. One have to be normal, another have to be defective, and then she can be phenotypically normal but would be a carrier. But second defective X chromosome, this female have to inherit from the father side. So father have to be also defective X chromosome and normal Y chromosome, and in this case father have to be affected also with this genetic disorder, because father doesn't have another X chromosome just like female here, and if this male would have defective X chromosome, that means that his phenotype also have to be defective, and we do not see it here. So we also can say that this is not X-linked recessive genetic disorder. So we can cross out this answer A. So now we left with 3 answers: autosomal recessive, autosomal dominant, autosomal recessive 1 in 4. So 1 in 2 and 1 in 4 autosomal recessive, and autosomal dominant 1 in 2. Autosomal dominant genetic disorders are inherited in a pattern that 1 out of 2 children would be affected. We have to expect this ratio, but let's see if it suits our picture here, what we see here. Imagine that, for example, one person would be affected with autosomal dominant genetic disorder. So, for example, say this male is affected here, and in order for his granddaughter also to be affected, this defective allele, for example, his genotype would be capital A and small a, and here we have small a, small a. Once again, we assume that this is dominant genetic disorder. So dominant allele here would be defective allele. But as you see, if we cross this genotype with this genotype, for example, capital A small a and small a, as you see, if it is going to be a dominant genetic disorder, autosomal, so here we would have capital A, capital A, small a here, small a here, and small a here. So in this case, 50% of the progeny would be normal, 50% would be affected. But in order for this female here to be affected, this defective allele somehow have to be inherited through whether mother side or through the father side. So this is father side and this is mother side. And we see that none of these people are affected. So we can say that this is not autosomal dominant, because dominant genetic disorder cannot skip generations. At least one person, whether here or here, have to have this genetic disorder, and this genetic disorder cannot skip generations. So let's now assume that this is autosomal recessive. So we left with 2 answers. This is whether autosomal recessive 1 and 2 or autosomal recessive, and probability that the next child would be affected is 1 out of 4. and we have to choose whether it is 1 out of 2. So we can see such a picture if both parents would be heterozygous and genetic disorder would be recessive. So both parents would be heterozygous and genotype of this person would be 2 defective alleles. So if both parents are heterozygous, and this time we assume that this is autosomal recessive genetic disorder, so phenotype of the parents would be normal, and probability of different genotypes in their progeny would be as follows. So as you see, 1/4 of the progeny would be affected, and we can explain what we see here with autosomal recessive genetic disorder, when 2 parents would be phenotypically normal but would have a child with this genetic defect, because this is recessive genetic disorder, so both parents would be phenotypically normal, and probability that their next child also would have the same genetic problem, as you see, would be 1 out of 4. So every time this couple would have a child, this is going to be probability that this child would be affected with this genetic disorder, and 3/4 would be probability that the child would be phenotypically normal. Those, as you see, 2/3 of those who looks phenotypically normal would be carriers. So as you see, the correct answer would be answer D, autosomal. This is autosomal genetic disorder, and probability to inherit this genetic disorder, meaning to express this genetic disorder, would be 25%, or 1 in 4. And this is all for today. Thank you for your attention. Please subscribe for my new videos that I post almost every day. Thumbs up if you like this video. Please write your comments, questions if you have any. Share this video with your classmates, and see you in the next video. Goodbye.